to make constraints. Pretty simple. Let's go back to our shapes. So let's drag out a block, drop it on the scene, go to my attachment points on my tools menu, click on it, and I want to make an attachment point at the top. It's done. I need to name it. So I go to my name feature and I want to tell it that's a top. But do I want it to be male or female or neutral? In this case, I want it to be neutral. I can also make the constraints here, but I want to leave those constraints off for a moment, and I'm just going to say OK. So now I've got one part done. Let me do this. A cylinder, attachment point, drop it, right-click, name, top, and neutral again. So now I've created two attachment points, and let me go to my other catalog here that I created earlier. Drag this, drop it, drag this one, and drop it. So now I'm building a library of parts. I don't need those on the screen anymore. So if I take this part number 1, drop it on this in my scene, take the part number 2, and just touch it on top, it snaps in place. But because I didn't put any constraints on it, I can move it, and it moves. So let's go back and add constraints. Highlight that part, do a right click, and want to edit the catalog item. It's in a catalog and it's an item, and what it does is it takes that item, fires it up into a scene. Turn off ISO, not like working in ISO. Go back, highlight the part, right click, set the name. And this time I'm going to add it. I want it to be a coincident constraint, and I want to lock it in the Z axis. That's all I do. I exit out of that and I save that. Go to my part number 2, edit the catalog item here. Set the name and add the 2 constraints that the others had. And we'll save that. So now if I take the block, drag it, take the cylinder, touch it on top of it, highlight the cylinder, turn the tri-ball on, it's all locked together. Same at the bottom. Turn the tri-ball on, it locks together. So that's how quick and easy it is to make attachment points. But maybe you don't want constraints and you want to use attachment points. I have another client who makes gymnasium type furniture. You've all seen the Olympics where the person jumps on the floor and the floor is soft and it bounces. Well, they make all that equipment as well as all these soft little pieces you might see in a kid's gym someplace. But the floor that they make is a spring floor. So let me drag that out. Click on the button down here to show all. So this is one of those floors you might see with all the springs under it. And I've got attachment points on this so that if he wants to configure different configurations, all he has to do is drag it and drop it. And he can actually create a floor, and I don't have to worry about, or he doesn't have to worry about mating them together. And he can create the floor that he needs, because each gym is going to be different, each client of his is going to be different. And that's what attachment points do. But what they also do, let me get rid of this here, is I have a main mat. So if I drop the main mat in the scene, and he wants to configure a gym for a client, he can now take some of the stuff that he builds and drag it and just drop it on the surface, and it snaps to the center. But what it does is it snaps to the and it's on top of the mat. If I were just to take this and drop it on the scene, it's above the mat, and he would have to now move it, and it just makes it for added time. So then you would just turn the tri-ball on, move that to where you want it to go, take another thing, drag it, turn the tri-ball on there. We got too many things going here. Okay, there we go. And move that over here. So he can continue just touching the drives at location, and move that over here. So all I'm doing here is I'm using the attachment point to place the items on top of the mat. Again, just depending on what you're trying to do. And in one particular case, he has a piece of equipment that actually unfolds. So he thought maybe it would be nice to be able to show somebody how that piece unfolds. And that's so he can kind of make it a little bit of an instruction kit out of it. Again, to show how you open up the mat and maybe you move it around. And indeed, he has pads. Let me move this out of the way. Turn this off. And move this out of the way. In this case, we have a pad, but the pad has attachment points on it. So if he wants to make it into a larger pad, they just snap together. So that's why you would use attachment points. It helps you build configurations and assemblies without having to move things around. They automatically snap to where they're going to go. And what we've been doing is we've been using catalogs, a library of catalogs.